Greetings, my dear viewers, and might I say, what a glorious Halloween season. And you know what that means? That's right, we continue my tradition of reviewing scary games. Oh wait, I've never done any game reviews for Halloween. Man, I should be ashamed. Well, this year I'm changing that. So, for my first ever Halloween review, we have a pretty frightening game that came out on the PS1 about 25 years ago. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Clock Tower. Released back in 1997 in the US, aka the same year I was born. Now correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this marks the first rated M game I review on this channel. So quick disclaimer for those who may be squeamish over blood and dead bodies, but then again the graphics are a bit old and I'm sure many of you have seen worse than what this game has in store, but just in case. Before we check out this game, let's check out the sick cover art. Now isn't that freaky? We got this creep here with some big ass scissors and there's blood all over it. Looks to me as someone took rock paper scissors a bit too seriously. Should have chosen rock. Just saying. Anyways, let's start the game. Ugh. What the hell is that? Alright, so we got this girl here trying to escape Mr. Giant Purple Fetus Thanos here. And he gets blown up by a crate of explosives. Okay, hold on. Did this already happen or something? I'm confused. So as it turns out, this small sequence was something that happened in the previous Clock Tower game. Yes, the previous. So despite this game being called Clock Tower, this is actually a sequel to Clock Tower on the Super Famicom. And in Japan, this game is known as Clock Tower 2. Ah, so we got a Mother/Earthbound situation in our hands. The first game gets released only in Japan with no plans of localization, but the sequel gets a worldwide release and renamed so that it seems like a standalone title. Not fair, to be honest. At least with Mother 1, we did eventually get an official localized release. But as for Clock Tower on the Super Famicom, nope, nothing. There do exist fan translations, but that's about it. Now, I could play the first one to get an idea of how the series began and the events that bring us to this game. But how about instead, we put ourselves in the perspective of someone who just bought this game back when it came out in the US, with no knowledge of the prequel that came out in Japan. And the only thing we really have to go by is the last option on the main menu that says pamphlet. Alright, Clock Tower story. This should fill us in. In the mountains of Romsdal in Norway stands the Barrows family mansion. This mansion had a large clock tower by which the locals tended their flocks in the surrounding fields. The local people called the mansion the Clock Tower. In 1986, the mistress of the Barrows mansion gave birth to twins. From the day they were born, however, it was obvious the twins were not normal and were evil. The twins were given the names Bobby and Dan, who were later to become the murderous Scissormen. In 1995, a young girl from the Granite Orphanage, whose parents died when she was quite small, was lured into the Barrows mansion, where she was attacked by a monster wielding a giant pair of scissors. That monster was the grown-up Bobby. She managed to escape from the terrible horrors, destroy the monster, and flee the mansion. For the next year, all of Norway was caught up with the sensationalized Scissorman murder. Although Jennifer thought he was dead, Scissorman has reappeared. To sum it up, this girl Jennifer was going around a mansion while being pursued by a monster man carrying a giant pair of scissors. She managed to defeat him and escape, but now he's back apparently. Let's just begin.
What on earth are you doing, Professor? You mustn't hypnotize her like this.
Wait, what is this? Is that a cursor?
Remember the murders yet?
Okay, so this is a point-and-click game.
Research material for me.
Too bad I don't have a mouse for that. Just my controller. And let me tell you, point-and-click games can be awkward to play with a controller. So anyways, we got Jennifer, her new guardian Helen, and this guy, Professor Barton. Okay, I guess I'm playing as Professor Barton, even though I thought Jennifer was the main character. But then again, this is the prologue, so we'll probably play as her later. But for now, you just go around as Professor Barton here, talking to workers around the office about the Clock Tower murders. Now, one thing you might find a bit weird and confusing is that you have to make sure you talk to certain people and click on certain things before you're able to progress. And when you talk to people, be sure to talk to them more than once, because sometimes they don't finish the conversation in one go. For instance, you have to talk to this guy Danny several times until he tells you about a couple of reporters who are downstairs. Then you gotta examine his desk in the back, and only then can you leave the room. Alright, then this other guy, Harris, tells you that the reporters are downstairs, so let's just go. You talk to the reporters, go back upstairs, and now you are faced with a decision involving this statue, which was found at the scene of the murders. Professor Barton must choose whether to send it to the library to be examined by a man named Mr. Sullivan, or have Harris give it to Rick, a former butler of the Barrows Mansion. So it's one of those games, where depending on what you do or don't do, can lead to different outcomes, which ultimately can lead to 10 different endings. We're going to go ahead and say yes and have Harris take it to Rick. So now Professor Barton goes into his office to talk to another clock tower survivor aside from Jennifer, a young kid named Edward. And that's the prologue. Okay, so now I'm Helen apparently? So wait, can I not play as Jennifer? The back of the game says 5 playable characters, except I can't choose who I play as. What's going on? Well, my dear viewers, let me explain. It's a bit of a doozy. As I said before, the story can turn down several paths depending on what you do or don't do. Oddly enough, this includes the character you play as. Back in the prologue, when you find Harris in the hallway, the amount of times you talk to him will actually determine who you play as for the majority of the story. If you only talk to him once and then move on, you end up playing as Helen, but if you talk to him 2 or more times, then you play as Jennifer. It's a bit odd and kind of unnecessary, to be honest. I mean, couldn't it have just been a simple select screen where you get to choose who you play as? Now, as to how the story differs between the two, I'll get into as we go through it. But for now, let's switch to Jennifer, since according to the director, her story is the canonical one. So now you're presented with a map screen, and you're able to go to most of the places listed and talk to whoever's there. Eventually, you go back to Jennifer's apartment and meet one of the reporters from earlier, Nolan. He then proceeds to ask Jennifer to have an interview/date with her. He looks a bit old for her, don't you think? Nolan is 26. Jennifer is 15. She's a minor. This dude should consider himself lucky that social media didn't exist back then. Anyways, after about 20 or so minutes of running around and whatnot, we're finally getting into juicy stuff. I don't see anyone, but I'll take her word that we're being followed.
What's wrong?
Help! Someone is following me!
Some kind of weirdo?
Oh shit! Oh jeez, the Scissor Man's here. I gotta go. Okay, I guess in here. Okay, okay, a box. Let's see if we can hide in it. Oh, that worked. Ah, that worked. Thank God. Alright, so now we're inside the university building, and unfortunately, so is this hunchbacked Michael Myers wannabe, who slowly limps around with his big, and not to mention loud, pair of scissors. Trust me, my dear viewers, when I say, the more you play this game, the longer the chinking sound of those scissors will be engraved into your mind. Alright, so now all we can really do is explore to find a way out and hopefully not get caught by Scissor Man. There are 3 floors which you can access by either using the stairwell or the elevator. And if you thought using the cursor was awkward enough, well, get a load of the frickin' stairwell. Ugh, come on, get up there. No, get up there, come on. But it's a better option than trying to use the elevator, because if you try to use the elevator, there's a 50-50 chance that Scissor Man might pop out. And when he does, all you can do is run away and find a place where you can either hide or defend yourself. Which, by the way, is pretty freaking cool. Depending on what room you go to while Scissor Man is on the hunt, there are pretty creative ways to escape your doom. Some of them involve hiding, but where's the fun in that? How about we go into a bathroom stall, wait until he comes in, and bash the hell out of him with a broom? It's satisfying, and not to mention pretty damn funny. Look, he doesn't even try to get up after you hit him. And in some cases, like for example when you attack him with ammonia from the cabinet, he just runs out of the room like, oh hell no, I'm out of here. Alright, now watch this. Yeah, have a taste of mace, you quasi-mofo. Now, if he does manage to corner you, you do have a shot of getting away. All you gotta do is rapidly mash the square button. Or, you know, he'll stab you. Okay, so back to finding a way out of here. You need a key to unlock this ladder at the top of the stairwell. You find said key in the security office on the first floor. Afterwards, you can either proceed to the ladder and finish the level, or explore a bit more. Which if you do so, you may find some items and some hints that'll prove to be useful later in the game. And maybe find a few dead bodies that'll make Jennifer vomit. Now if you're playing as Helen, things will be a bit different. For example, the level starts with you already inside and on the third floor, as opposed to the first floor. The key you find in the security office is not a ladder key, but instead a storage key. And you'd think you'd be able to use the key and leave right away. No, it's wired shut too. So now you gotta go find pliers in a computer room where Scissor Man is almost always present the first time you go in. So get the pliers, get the flashlight if you're going for the best ending, go into the storage room, use the pliers, use the storage key, and drive away from that asshole. Oh, geez, I know that was a lot to take in, and that was only the first scenario. The second one is where things get a bit more complex, plus there's more decision making, so stick with me. So, after more going around the town, you go talk to the groomer, Nolan again, where he asks Jennifer if he should go retrieve the statue from Rick's place. Now remember in the prologue when you had a choice as to where that weird statue would end up? Well, let's hope you did, because the game doesn't remind you what choice you chose. And depending on what you answer with will determine where the next level takes place. Choosing yes will have you play as Nolan, who goes to Rick's house. Choosing no will have you take control of Helen, who went to the library. And I can't stress this enough, if you want the best possible ending, you have to make sure you go to the location you had the statue sent to. Otherwise, the game will end after you complete the level, and you'll be presented with the worst possible ending you could get. Well, there are two different endings depending on who you play as. So let's say yes and go see Rick. Once you get there, you have a brief chat about some Barrows family history and the Barrows Castle, and then... Ooh, yeah, he's dead. And I'm out of here. So, it's the same drill when it comes to dealing with Scissor Man, either hide or fight back. All the while searching the house to find two things, the statue and the location of the Barrows Castle. The statue is in this particular room upstairs, and the location can be found on this mask hanging on the kitchen wall. However, after examining it, the mask along with some nearby objects start floating around you. So what do? You pick up this thing, and you throw it at the mask. And now that that's done, we can finally leave. Right? The dog just killed me. I repeat, the dog just killed me. It's one thing to be killed by Scissor Man, but the dog? Okay, screw everything. Let's go in this room, grab some powder soap, and blind this Mitch. Look, the dog's not female, so I can't call it a bitch. So I made up a similar sounding word to use for a male dog. You know, female dogs are bitches, and male dogs are Mitches. Look, the level's over, let's just go. Okay, so real quick, if you're wondering what happens when you go to Rick's house during Helen's storyline, you instead play as this guy, Assistant Inspector Gotts, and things play out a little different. For example, Rick dies at the beginning of this level too, but instead of getting crushed by his chandelier, his death is a little different. Can you guys take a wild guess on how he gets killed?
Such a racket.
Yep, the dog kills him. And after that, it's pretty much the same mission of finding the statue and castle location. It's actually easier because they're both found in this same room where you can find Scissorman watching a cartoon. So just grab him and go. And don't forget to blind the dog on the way out. Now you're probably wondering what Helen is going through in the library. Let's see, she goes there to do research to find clues about Scissorman. Then the library's clock tower gets turned on, so Mr. Sullivan and Helen go to investigate, only for Mr. Sullivan to get decapitated by the freaking minute hand of the clock. Then of course Scissorman attacks you, so you have to hide or attack him, and now Helen must find the statue if it got sent there, and you also gotta help that kid Edward escape through a vent in which you need a screwdriver for. Interestingly enough, this is the only scenario that can be played in either storyline with no differences. But if I'm being honest, it's my least favorite level in the whole game. It's not horrible, but Rick's house was definitely more interesting. So once you beat whichever level you did and you made sure to get the statue, you can now proceed to the final level. So go around town, talk to everyone, and bring them all on your big trip to the Barrows Castle in England. Now this is the part where things get really complicated. I know I've said that a lot in this review, which honestly turned into a walkthrough at this point, but here is where things can get a bit mixed up. Not to mention the rest of the endings are all within this last level, and if you want the best possible ending, then listen carefully. The level starts out with everyone missing. It turns out they're all scattered about in the Barrows Castle. Now you gotta find everyone, as well as more items and clues to figure out how to officially defeat Scissorman. And depending on who you play as, things will play out a little bit differently. We're going to start with Helen this time. She wakes up after being knocked unconscious and the level starts. You go through the door and now you can explore the castle, which frankly is a bit difficult to navigate, especially if it's your first time. But as you find your way around, you'll eventually find your travel companions such as Beth, who gets killed if you let her follow you, Harris, who gives you a fireplace key that you don't need unless you want a bad ending, and Tim, who's just chilling in the wine cellar. Now, one thing I've heard is that apparently if you don't manage to find these guys soon enough, there is a possibility that they won't be alive when you eventually find them. So in this room, you'll find a copper book on the bed, you open the drawer next to it and find a severed hand that comes to life and starts to strangle you. You mash square to get it off and click on the quill to grab it and stab the hand. When that's all said and done, you check the drawer again and you find a note. A spell to exorcise the devil children is concealed in the fireplace. That fireplace being in the master bedroom. You go there to find a library key inside of a mouse hole. Then back at the fireplace, use the flashlight that hopefully you found in scenario 1, only to find that it has dead batteries. But luckily, new ones can be found in this particular room inside of a tape recorder that's on the ground. Also, there's a chest that contains lead balls, which will come handy in later. Oh, and don't forget Nolan's in the coffin. Unlock the door to the library and find a wooden box which you can open by throwing it to the fireplace in the study, which gives you the cosmetics key. Back in the library, you place the copper book in the shelf, which then opens up and reveals a secret room. In this room, there are 3 different holes to go down. Now which one is the right one? Well, that's where the lead balls come in. Drop the balls in each hole and listen for a sound. If it's a splash, then it's bad. But if it's a thud, then that's the one you go down. Go through the underground passage and then you find Gotts. After talking to him several times, he gives you a pistol. And then this happens.
Probably the ghosts of all the kids killed here.
How terrible.
A Five Nights at Freddy's joke would have been way too obvious, folks. Now that you have a pistol, you go downstairs and then something else happens.
Is someone there?
Oh, it's no use. The door won't open. Hold on, Jennifer, I'm coming.
Have I mentioned that the voice acting in this game is phenomenal? And when I say that, I mean phenomenally mediocre. So you click on the locked door with the pistol equipped, which has Helen shoot it off in a badass fashion. So you go inside, only to find Jennifer tied to a cross while Scissor Man is about to kill her. There's no time to waste here, so make sure your pistol is equipped again and click on Scissor Man to shoot his ass down before he can make the kill. Nailed it! Alright, let's see who this bastard really is. Oh. It was Professor Barton. So yeah, Professor Barton was Scissor Man this whole time. He proceeds to talk about how evil can easily overtake you, and that he was drawn in by his evil soul. Wait, his? Oh, okay, so Professor Barton was just going around acting like a Scooby-Doo villain, and now we gotta find the real Scissor Man. Now keep in mind, this is Helen's story, which is not actually canon. That would be Jennifer's story, which we're gonna go ahead and talk about now. I figured it'd be more interesting to have both character plotlines covered before we get into the final confrontation with Scissor Man, since they both pretty much play out the same. So Scenario 3 with Jennifer begins a bit differently. Instead of playing through the level and eventually finding out who the fake Scissor Man is, the truth comes out rather quickly.
Don't be afraid, Jennifer. It's me, Harris.
Harris?
Yep, this time it's Harris. Turns out he's a complete creep who wanted to get with Jennifer. God, what is up with these adult main characters going after a freaking 15-year-old girl? But that's all nice and fine because the real Scissor Man kills him shortly after. Alright guys, let's make this quick. I know this video is already so damn long, and you're probably dying to know how this story ends, but I do thank you guys for managing to get this far, so let's finish it! You go in here and knock a clothing rack on Scissor Man, go back in and find a stair key in that same clothing rack, then in this small room find a note with a spell, go in the church and grab the star plate on the back wall, go into the torture chamber and talk to Inspector Gotts, grab the candle on the floor and use the key to unlock some stairs that lead through a fireplace. Go to the master bedroom and grab the library key in the mouse hole, then go to the courtyard to find Professor Barton so he can— oh shit! Okay, run from Scissor Man. Now go to Professor Barton so he can translate the note. Find Beth in the wine cellar and get the mansion key, get the copper book, unlock the door, and use the oil can you got in Scenario 1 to open this door. In here, open the coffin to find an old mummified descendant of Scissor Man, and more importantly, a key. Grab some rope from the shelf and use it to tie this door shut so bats won't come and attack you while you open the chest with the key you got. Inside this chest you'll find Helen, and she can also translate the note if you end up finding Professor Barton dead. Go upstairs and then outside where Scissor Man will go after you, but thankfully you can escape him quickly. Find Nolan, talk to him, and proceed to the library. Find the box on the top of the shelf that contains the Barrow's genealogy. There's a specific painting in this room that has a note behind it that hints where the map is located. In this room you'll find Tim, who may or may not be dead, but that's not important because you need to grab the matches. Go back in here and use the candle on the candle holder, and use the matches on the candle and get the map. Now in the library, use the copper book to open the puzzle room, and while you're in her— God damn it! So, back in here, use the star plate to determine which hole to go down, and you'll find a secret room where there's a dagger just laying there. Grab it and go. Alright. Now when you have everything you need, whether you're playing as Jennifer or Helen, proceed to the courtyard and find a valve to drain the fountain. You'll find an underground passage that will lead you to the final confrontation with Scissor Man.
Let's stop this and go back to the Granite Orphanage. Edward?
So, it was you, Edward.
Oh, it was Edward the whole time? Wait a minute, hold on. Edward. Scissor Man. Edward Scissorhands. Was that intentional? I guess the world may never know.
But my name isn't Edward, it's Dan.
Wait, Dan? Oh, hold on. I gotta go back and look at the first game real quick. So in Clock Tower on the Super Famicom, the scissor man that chases after you was Bobby Barrows. His twin brother Dan was also in this game. And apparently he was that giant purple infant monster in the opening cutscene. I'm sorry, but how did this used to be that? Okay, moving on. This last part plays out almost the exact same no matter who you play as. You run across the bridge, place the statue in a 30cm wide hole, and now you can just sit back and watch the ending unfold. You use the spell to open the door in the background, and Scissorman/Edward/Dan gets pulled in, but not before attempting to drag you in with him. Thankfully, as Helen, you don't have to do anything. Gots will eventually shoot him and he gets pulled in. However, as Jennifer, you have to quickly use the dagger you found to get him off you. Otherwise, you'll get pulled in and rewarded with a different ending. So don't forget to use it. And there you have it, guys. If you followed everything I explained, then there is no reason you shouldn't get the best possible ending. And that was Clock Tower. Overall, a pretty good classic horror game, I must say. The point and click experience was a bit awkward with the controller, but nothing I couldn't get used to. The story is really interesting, I enjoyed the puzzle solving, and I especially enjoyed knocking the shit out of Scissorman with all kinds of tricks. Now, would I consider this game to be scary? I'd say back when this game came out in '97 it probably was. But in this day and age, the old graphics just make me crack up. It still does have its scary, unnerving, and intense moments, but nothing bad enough to give me nightmares. Now, I'm sure if they ever remade this game with modern graphics and better voice acting, I'm sure those alone would make things 10 times scarier. So yeah, that's all I have to say about Clock Tower, and man, that was exhausting. But I hope you enjoyed this review/walkthrough, and I look forward to doing something possibly even scarier for next spooky month. So until next time, this is Beneficial Gamer, signing off.